Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. We recommend that you guys start getting us on Spotify. Apple Podcasts been a little slow lately. So if you want to get us right away, whether you're Android or you're Apple, just go to Spotify. You don't even have to pay for the premium. You can still catch us. So find Five on the Floor and download us there. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. It's $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. The place for the most heat information, conversation, celebration, consternation, and repudiation of Pat Riley lately. But we'll see where that goes. I got no more Asians to give you. Check it out. It's Off the Floor. Link right here in the description. $2.99 per month. Also, check out Prize Picks. That's the official fantasy sponsor of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Use the code 5FIVE. Put down your $5. You get $50 to play. Prize Picks is legal in the state of Florida. You can play across the sports spectrum. So the NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, Panthers still alive. Check it out. It's Prize Picks. Use the code FIVE. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, five on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's about have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and Five Reasons Sports. I got Sean Rochester. You can follow him at S Rochester NBA. You can also find him on Off the Floor. Occasionally pops in a playback as well. Check out playback during the NBA playoffs. Playback.tv/5RSN. That's playback.tv/5RSN. And you can watch the playoff games with us. We're still going through Pat Riley's press conference. It's going to take a little bit of time. 2 episodes already. By the way, our biggest one-day download episode ever, and that was after Alex and my daughter figured out a way to prop up the computer so that we could actually do it from a lounge in the arena. So I think that was a trash can and a cushion. So anyway, that's the way we'll do all of our podcasts from now on after today's. Check that out. Also, sat down with Greg when I got back, and we went through one particular comment that Pat Riley made about change, kind of the opposite of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. In this case, and I'll go through the quote here exactly. The quote was it change is, I'm trying to find it now. Change is the highest form of sanity. So it took us 42 minutes to dissect what exactly that means. Today, Sean and I are going to talk about something more specific, basketball related, which is this. I'm not exactly sure how Pat Riley wants Erik Spoelstra to play. And he was asked about, I believe it was by Tim Reynolds, he was asked about the offense and that it really has not been very good for a while. Pat was not asked the question about bringing in an outside voice. In retrospect, if I'd had another question, I would have tried to get that one in. We've talked about that, Sean. That's been a topic of conversation on the Discord. I know you have feelings about that as well. But he was asked about the offense and the fact that it is look, it's not been a high level offense for really very long time. Actually, they tried something different this year. The threes and threes and layups, threes and dunks, all that kind of stuff. All that seemed to do was piss Jimmy off. And then they ended up finishing, what was it, 21st or something like that in offensive rating. They tend to settle in that area between like 15 and 24 consistently. But as we were talking about before the show, when he was asked about that by Tim Reynolds, he kind of deflected it to not having had a conversation with Spo about it yet. We talked about Spo's personal problems, which of the last couple of years, which surprised me that he mentioned that, and then that he was in Hawaii. What is your sense of how he wants Erik Spoelstra to play?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, he deflected the question first, started talking about Spo's wear and tear. And when he came back to it, he brought up the quote was, I could give him my playbook from 2006 or 2007, but it's archaic. And then like ... but it's not. So would I agree that his playbook from 2006 and 2007, if we went on playback and watched a bunch of games from that season, it's archaic, it's outdated. You know, the strategies and actions are not what you see in modern offenses now. But he says, but it's not. So I guess we're really thinking about what does that last part mean? Because if he didn't say that, he would be saying, you know, my way of playing doesn't work anymore. You can't, you know, try to score 90 points and win. And he does hint that he says he knows first we need to defend. And I think that's important. Like this is not going to change into last year's Indiana Pacers where let's score 110, 115, 120. You're just not going to keep up with us. We're always, you know, one of the pillars of the Heat organization has been defense for 30 years. I don't think that's going to change. But, you know, as we go through this episode, the offense has changed. The results haven't, right? It's been 30, 26, 24, this year 21 in terms of offensive rating. But why are the results not changing when the strategy has? And so I don't know.
But Sean, isn't that just, and I know where you're going, but aren't most fans going to jump in here and say, because Pat hasn't gotten them more talent?
Well, no, I mean, that's where I would agree with. Like, I've said this many times. I mean, this is a topic that comes up quite often, especially now when you're watching good playoff basketball and you're watching teams that can put the ball in the basket routinely at ease. And you have the Miami Heat that, you know, the other night, the Thunder scored more in the first half than we did in 2 of our playoff games in the entire 48 minutes. So in my opinion, I agree. Like, I don't think if you gave this year's Heat all 29 other teams' playbooks and said, all right, you get to play for 10 games with each playbook, would it change it a little bit? Sure. Like, there's certain styles that may be better, but on a massive scale, going from like in the deep 20s up into a top 10 offense, no, the talent isn't good enough. And so that's the problem that has to be solved.
When he speaks about the talent on this team, he wasn't really asked about Bam's growth specifically yesterday. I've said on both podcasts that was a very meat and potatoes, not meat and potato. It was a big picture podcast without a lot of fluff. Podcast. I keep screwing this up. Big picture press conference without a lot of fluff. Okay, like he wasn't even asked a question about Andrew Wiggins, like who's supposedly the third best player on this team. He wasn't asked about Terry Rozier. I mean, fans wanted us to ask that, but again, what's the point? Like, they know they effed that up. Okay, like, okay, we've all acknowledged it. Okay, and they've acknowledged it privately. But like, there wasn't anything about like, okay, how is Bam going to grow as a player or anything like that. It was more like how are Bam and Tyler going to grow as leaders. He spoke about Tyler being an ignitable offensive player, that we need to get him more help. I believe, based on his answer to me about managing an aging star, that the goal here basically is to get Kevin Durant. And then your offense is going to look different. But here's the other thing. The Durant offenses in Phoenix have not been great. They just based on, offensive rating and all that kind of stuff. There are other factors involved in that. Coaching probably has played into that. They went from Vogel to Budenholzer. But also, you know, the Beal thing hasn't worked. They didn't really have a point guard. They brought in Tyus Jones. They brought in Monte Morris. That really didn't work. So there are other factors that go into all of this. But it seems like in his mind, he acknowledges they do need some more talent, like adding one of the greatest offensive players of all time before he's totally on the other end of it is part of it. But also when he talks about this thing about 2006 and his playback, well, it's antiquated, but it's not. I mean, I can tell you that during my conversations, Sean, with both sides during the whole Jimmy thing, Jimmy's camp liked to put it out there that Pat still believed he could like coach at a high level, still believed in his philosophies, and sometimes that sort of came at the expense of the way he spoke of Spo. And I didn't ever reported a lot of it because I really didn't know what to believe from Jimmy's camp, but that I can tell you that made its way to me. Do you get the sense in any way that he's frustrated with Spo based on the comments that he made yesterday?
No. And I would say this. You've met Pat many more times than I have, but I've been around him enough to have a feel of like, he even went into this yesterday about being Irish and the depression. And Pat, to the day that he dies, is going to think that he can walk out there and coach. Like, he's just that type of person,
Right.
competitor. Like, he probably thinks he can go out there and play. He's kind of got that irrational, like Udonis confidence that if he got a couple weeks to get in shape, he could go out there and give us 8 minutes. Like, that's just who Pat is. And so I don't take it as like he was throwing jabs at Spo and like he's thinking about potentially coming back to the bench or anything like that. It's just, I'm sure there are philosophies that Pat and Spo don't align on. And that's okay. Like we talked about that with the assistant coaches. That's what you want. You can't have total alignment. You got to have some, disagreement that gets resolved over the course of time. And Spo ultimately has to be the decision maker in that. I don't think it's frustration, but I don't think it's frustration in Spo. I think it's frustration in the results. Like you can't look at the offensive results being in the 20s for 3 years, 4 years now and not think, okay, something has to be done. Something has to change, whether it's the parts, whether it's the strategies and actions. So I just think, it's definitely not a frustration in Spo. I think he knows how good he is. I think he knows how good the staff is. The staff beyond, underneath Spo is good too. But there has to be an improvement.
Okay, so let's get back to the 2006 comment, and let's get to where the league is. What did they do in 2005? They played through Shaq. Okay, 2004, 2005. Shaq probably should have been the MVP. Nash was. You can make an argument either way.
Yeah.
The next year, there was obviously Shaq was injured, and again, I'm talking about Stan was playing through Shaq at that point, obviously, right? And then Pat took over during the 05-06 season, and maybe didn't play through Shaq quite as much because Shaq was not Shaq. And then all of a sudden, of course, Avery Johnson decided to still double team Shaq in the finals, and Dwayne did what Dwayne did. I saw a comment today about, have we ever seen something on Twitter? Have we ever seen anybody do this at Donovan Mitchell's height? I'm like, yeah, we have, because Dwayne was really 6'2", honestly. But anyway, aside. So, but if you talk about a 2006 playbook and the way that Pat has traditionally wanted to play in the past, okay, even when he had Magic and Showtime and all that, when they needed a bucket, they'd play through Kareem, right? They'd play through Patrick in New York. And he played through Zoe in the late 90s, okay, even with Timmy. And obviously, Timmy had his huge moments, but sometimes they tried to force the ball to Zoe, even when Zoe was not as nimble or, as a post player as maybe he became right before his illness. I guess the question is this: if your league is going back towards double bigs, which is where they're going, you look at a lot of the teams in the playoffs that have had success right now, or some of their best numbers have come when they played two bigs together. Do you think Pat is saying we want to play bigger, we want to play through Bam and Ware more? And if that's the case, like, can they even do that with the types of players that Bam and Ware are right now? Bam has never been a great post threat. I mean, there's a lot of other things he does well, but that's not really it. Holds the ball too low. Sometimes isn't physical enough. His isolation numbers are better than his post numbers typically. And Ware, Ware's like, a toothpick right now. Like, can you actually do it if that's what he wants to do?
Yeah, I don't believe so. And both of those guys, they're not post-up players for different reasons. Where even if he gets in the weight room this summer, he's not going to be a guy you throw on the block, enter it from the wing, and then have him back down and do post moves. Like, this is not what he is. He's a vertical spacer. He's very good at that. Bam, I've been saying this. I probably would say this since before I joined 5 Reasons, however many years ago this was. The 3 ball is great, and I'm glad that it's been added. But, and Sedano said this the other day, 14, 15 feet in, one dribble moves, attack the basket, use your athleticism, tighten up your handle a little bit, have counters to everything. I've been saying that for every bit of 5 years now. The 3 is great, but I think Sedano said it, or maybe you said it, we've turned him into a softer player.
I said that. Yeah, but George and I agree on this, but I think that's the case.
Look, he's not going to be Shaq. He's not built like that. He does things that Shaq can never do. Even though Shaq was a better passer than people give him credit for, Bam can be that hub where he can create things, and it doesn't have to be scoring. But that being said, like someone, and Pat mentions this, someone besides Tyler, who he mentions about how ignitable he is, and he gives him all these praises. Somebody else has to be that person. And if it's Bam, is it Ware? Is it, I don't know who else on the roster we're going to try to claim, Wiggins? It's probably not any of those guys. And you're already connecting the dots with the KD thing, but he brings it up multiple times. He talks about Tyler getting beat up, Tyler getting schemed. He is a guy that's getting 2 on the ball all the time, getting picked up 94 feet. So he basically says they need another guy like him, who does things like him. And what is the thing that Tyler does that you would want to replicate? It's scoring, right? You're not trying to find another guy that can't defend. You're not trying, So who is that? And it's someone like KD. And so
but it ain't on the roster. The fact that he didn't go anywhere on the roster, there was obviously, Rozier's not somebody that they want to talk about right now. But the fact that he didn't even mention Wiggins, who is a $30 million player with 2 more years in the contract that they acquired for Jim. I mean, really the only discussion of the return for Jimmy was that they were basically dealing with one team. He was kind of talking to the team that Jimmy preferred, and then he says he ended up going somewhere else. So they ended up being a second team. But we know the backstory of that process, that Jimmy's people just shut everything else down. Beal's contract shut everything else down. Golden State it was our first choice initially, but it became kind of the fallback option there for them. And so they did the best that they could. I mean, you look at that roster now. Like, would you have wanted Kuminga on this team to have to pay him? No. So if you have to make a trade, would you? Because I don't think he's a spoke player at all.
We talked about this on Playback the other night. The only reason that I would say I would, and this is why I didn't necessarily like getting Wiggins to begin with, is the extra salary, the extra year. Because Kuminga right now, you could be out of he could walk, and you could be out of that salary slot. Like I don't
agreed, but the way that would have been perceived was they got nothing for him, right? Like they got nothing.
I get both sides of it. The other thing I want, just while we're kind of talking Warriors, he does mention how Tyler has to learn to be a great player and mention Steph. And obviously he's not saying that Tyler is or is going to be Steph.
Yeah.
But Steph does have counters to the things that Tyler faced this year with the face guarding, with the denial. His other guys are having a hard time getting the ball. What does Steph do? He's constantly moving. He's running off screens.
Yeah.
Tyler's gotten better at that off the ball, but he can continue to get better and better at it. And I think that's part of, it's not really the offense, but it's counters to how defense plays you.
Okay. And Sean, I'm with you on that. I understand what he's getting at. Okay. He and Spo need to stop referencing or even hinting at Steph in the discussion of Tyler. It does Tyler no favors. Okay. It's the same thing as when fans are out there saying, well, they never see look what Jimmy is as a number 2 when he's playing with someone like Steph. And somebody tweeted at me, well, they never got him anyone like Steph. There ain't fucking anybody like Steph. Okay. Like, let's just stop this. We're talking about a guy who is 1 or 1A. Okay. In terms of point guards all time, is arguably the greatest offensive engine of this era. The only other guy to compare him to as an offensive engine of this era is the guy that we're also talking about right now, which is KD. This is, you cannot, this bird, like everybody's like, okay, well, Tyler put the bullseye on his back. Like I'm saying, he was in Luka and Trey and all theirs class. Okay. Okay. Like, stop comparing him to Steph in any way. You can say that he needs to develop more counters. We talked about it. Brady a year ago talked about how Tyler's gotten so much better kind of when the double comes, sort of backing off so that he can see some space. Like, he has gotten better at some of these things, but like, it's completely unfair to compare anybody to 30 in Golden State. I'm sorry. Okay. And this comes to when Heat fans are talking about how the Heat never, look, Dame was the facsimile, right? In some ways. Okay. And it didn't work out for a variety of reasons, but that is the comparisons to Steph. Anyway, on the other side of this, I want to get into where this actually goes with the offense now, with what they have, because the fact that he can't mention another guy to take the pressure off Tyler on the roster kind of tells me this is a talent problem more than anything else. It's just oh, here, Spo, do your best with Tyler again. Okay, like what are we doing here? All right, I do want to tell you about a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We always tell you about our friend Lynette. You can find her at 954-581-8800, insurancebylynette.com. biggest Heat fan that we know, honestly. Lynette joins us on Discord. She joins us on Playback. She's on all the podcasts. But the most important thing is she can help you get the best possible insurance. Car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance. She's the person to go to. She's based in Lauderhill, North Lauderdale area, a little bit out west, but you can service the entire area. So give her a call today, 954-581-8800. Pleasant person who's great at her job and a huge Heat fan. What else could you want when you're looking for insurance? So it's insurancebylynette.com, aggressive insurance agency, 954-581-8800. Okay, so let me go to this with it, okay? And the stuff on Spo yesterday it sounded like he was making excuses for Spo, which Spo's never once. What did you take from it? Because it rubbed both Greg and I a little bit wrong.
Yes, I agree with what you guys said. Because he is not the person that's out there putting out his personal information, and he's also not one to make excuses. And so I don't know what Spo may be drinking on that beach somewhere in Hawaii, but I imagine as he was watching that streamed, if he was watching it stream, maybe he's completely.
I doubt he was.
Or maybe he got a text message while at the pool, like, "Hey, you won't believe what Pat said about you." I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we can compare some sort of life situation that we've been into that, but I don't think he was probably happy about it. I don't see him like demand. This is not like the Jimmy part 2 thing where like he called out Jimmy and now Spo's going to be pissed and wants to find his joy somewhere else. But at least I hope not. But because we will be very joyless if that's what's going on.
I don't think that's the case. I think it's more similar to, as I said on the last pod, like when Pat just threw it out there in 2014 that the Savannah, James was having another child, and I got 2 texts from LeBron's camp within 5 minutes. What the F is he saying? So anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
No, I agree with you guys. Like, I think it was maybe a slip of Pat's tongue, and maybe he wishes he could take that back, but it was said, and it wasn't like incredibly inappropriate. It's just knowing who you're talking about. It would be different if it was, I would say, someone like Tyler, who is much more public in everything going on in his life.
Right. Spo tweeted once and never again. And then not only did he tweet once, I'm excited for training camp, I don't even think he tweeted that. His sister's in social media. So again, he stays off of all that stuff for a whole bunch of reasons. I would say in
a lot of ways we want to be like Spo, but probably that is the most we could ever want to be like. If you ever tweeted once on 1000%. Twitter and never came back, think about how
1,000%. We go out of business, but yes, 1,000%. Anyway, I'm sorry. Continue.
No, the other thing that I was going to say before we went to break and you were talking about the Steph comparison, a lot of the stuff about Tyler, he praises him. He's ignitable. He had a great season. He was in the gym, all those things. But a lot of it was like creating, I don't want to say excuses, but like him needing help to relieve pressure, getting beat up, all of these things that like we need to find support in he kind of hints towards other players. Doesn't that feed into the discussion about his contract extension? Are you paying a guy max money that needs a certain circumstance, a certain roster around him? And I've seen this has been a big discussion I saw yesterday. And in credit, I don't necessarily agree with everything Royal says, but this is something Royal brought up. Like Pat was really kind of making excuses for Tyler in a lot of ways, or talking about things he has to improve on in the comparison to Steph. And I don't.
It reminds me of the Tua thing.
Like he definitely.
It's like they give him the extension, but it's like, but things have to be perfect. Like that. That's the discourse around Tua.
So I think that's something that I pulled out of that thinking. The contract part, what Tyler's words were a week ago, now what Pat said. I don't see them overpaying him this summer. They're going to give him a number that's lower than probably what Tyler wants. If he'll take it, great. It's still going to be a tradable number if they want to do that down the road. But otherwise, you're playing this out, and we'll see what happens. Over
3 for 110 is my prediction. Something. That's not information. That's prediction. I just want to be clear on that, so don't aggregate it.
Yeah.
But I think something around there makes sense. And honestly, if you're Tyler and you have an injury history, although he's had bad luck, give him great credit for playing as much as he did this year, handling things the way he did this year. I think we've done that ad nauseum here. But I think you take it. I mean, you take the security, take the 110 if that's what it ends up being. You want to be here, 105, $110 million, something along those lines. Okay, so what are you giving up? You're giving up 35 million. Okay, I know there's no state tax here. It's not my money. Okay, I'm not trying to count other people's money. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
if you look at a contract that you're going to make a ton of money, you get a big raise. Okay, because what's he making now on average? 30. So you're essentially getting yourself a 20% or plus raise. And I'm not speaking for the organization here. I don't know what they're going to do. It just sounds to me like this is where it's headed. And it's also similar to what they were open to doing with Jimmy. Jimmy just never let them have the conversation. He just went bonkers before that. But like, if you're gonna, to me, the conversation with Tyler is, look, we want you here. You're a big part of what we do. We're gonna get you some help, okay, so that it's not all on you. You get the security, you get the no state tax, and you don't have to worry if you get injured this year. If you're banking on then you got to have a healthy season this year. If you're banking on making the most possible next season, I think that's why Pat liked his answer, because his answer was kind of didn't really put a lot of pressure on the Heat.
Yeah.
So if the Heat give a gesture and they give a fair offer, like 3 for 110, and they try to make it work with that, like, I think that's a good deal for both sides. And to retain a very good player is a big part of what you do, but cannot carry you to anything, right? I mean, that's where you're at.
What do you think, kind of merging this back, because we've kind of went off on now a Tyler,
Yeah.
contract extension tangent.
But he's a big part. He's a big part of it, though, Sean.
Well,
Like,
that's what I was going to say.
we're talking about the offense. He is the offense right now, basically.
Correct. And that's exactly where I was going, is that if you think Tyler is going to be here and you're going to ultimately give him an extension, the offense revolves around him. As much as you want to put Bam in that too, it's really around Tyler. You have to have a specific offense to make Tyler work. If you get to the point that you're exploring trading him, or you do trade him, or, I mean, you're not going to just not extend him and let him walk, but your offense changes, right? You don't know what the pieces are going to be then. Like, we can't predict that. But stylistically, that could change the path or the direction, that buzzword that we love to use, of the offense, because if Tyler's here, it's going to look like one thing. If Tyler's not, I mean, I don't think the 20th pick is going to change the direction on offense, but it's just an interesting next couple months up to a year of what is this going to look like? What is Ware's growth going to be? I don't know if there's anyone else besides Ware that you look at on the roster that, like, is going to make an incredible leap that is going to change your offensive trajectory. But I'm curious what you think about that.
Well, I think you're right about that. I don't see anybody. I don't see honestly, and to me, the guy who could help them pop offensively is more Jovic than Ware. But I don't know if Nico's ever going to be healthy or consistent enough, or they're going to find the right role for him. There's more. Am I wrong about that? Jovic has more offensive upside than Ware does, doesn't he?
Yes, and he's certainly the next guy. I mean, Ware, I think, is going to be ultimately the better player between him and Nico. But first of all, there's not a lot of options. Like, you're not even thinking about people after those two, like Jaime, but Pella. No. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Pella has a chance. I like Pella's makeup for them, and I think Pella has a chance to be a very good rotation player for them if he improves the shot. Yeah. Right. And Jaquez, I'm dubious right now, only because I don't know what the next act is for him. We can talk about the stomach ailments and the ankle and everything else that he dealt with this year, and I get it. And loss of confidence. Maybe he comes back. And I had higher hopes for him, but I think some of what people were saying about the ceiling being at a certain point, we kind of saw it. He's acknowledged the issue now, so and the way that he needs to attack it, but we'll see if he can actually do it. I don't know if it's there. But I think to me, Jovic is skilled. He's a natural basketball player. He knows where to go with the ball. I look, even when he missed those shots at the end of the game, I loved his minutes in those games. Like, I really, and I think he's got the right personality for them too. Like, I like a lot of things about him. It's just he hasn't been able to find that role. I would try not to move him if you don't have to, but look, if you have to, you do. And they offered him for Durant during the season. So, I mean, I guess the last thing on this is we talk about I know we've gotten to a bunch of different stuff here, but that's how these conversations are going to go. I want to get back to the Tyler extension one more time, just in the context of Bam. Okay. Because I think, to me, again, a fair contract for Tyler is about 3 for 110. Okay. Like, that's about where this would go. And I think, honestly, I think Tyler should take it so that he gets the security and doesn't have to worry about the injury stuff and all that. And again, it's a tradable contract. If things don't work out for him, then he could get a fresh start somewhere else. But Bam is going to be making, once the extension kicks in, right, 51, 55, 55 million, 55.1 at age 30 and 27, 28. And then he's got a player option for 59.1 the year after. I mean, and again, I love Bam. Okay. But if he's not going to get any better offensively, if this is just lean into more threes, if he's not going to be, then it's a lot of money. I'm even with the what we're looking at with the cat, with the tax lines going up and the second apron line going up and all that kind of stuff. It kind of feels like Tyler's caught in the crossroads here of if Tyler's going to be carrying the offense, not Bam. But Bam's going to be making that kind of money. I can see Tyler saying, even though there was affection between the two of them, like, wait a second, you're offering me 37.5. This guy's going to be making, 59 at the end of his contract, and then I got to run around. I got to create. I got to develop all the counters. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like that seems a little tilted. No, even though we know obviously Bam is a world's better defensive player. Don't send me texts and emails and all that kind of stuff.
Look, Bam is more of a two-way guy than Tyler is. He carries more of a burden, I believe, than Tyler does. That would be a hell of a skit if you could have the two of them in Pat or Mickey's office trying to argue for who's going to get the most money, because arguing about who does more and he does less, that would be gold. But, I think as we head into this offseason, this is the first time I really feel like, and I feel like Brian said this earlier in the week, I'm listening. I'm not actively trying to get rid of him.
Yeah.
But I'll listen. You come to me with an offer, I'll listen. And I, I think me, you, Greg, we all love Bam. I think everybody loves Bam to a certain extent, but he does have limitations. And we talked about with Tyler, you need a certain circumstances, certain offense system to make it work. Let's be honest, you need the same thing for Bam. He needs players around him for it to work. And I don't think that's to discredit him. We know he's an all-world defender, but in a lot of ways, I think he's a superstar role player. Not saying that he's not a star. He's not a role player either. Like Josh Hart is a role player. Davion Mitchell is a role player. Bam's not in that category, but he's a elite guy that can connect people. But right now, he doesn't have anyone to connect because he really only has Tyler and a bunch of guys that are kind of not really fitting in where, So like when you had Jimmy and you had Tyler and you had Kyle and you had PJ Tucker, like he can be that hub that connects everything and makes things work on both ends of the floor. And because of that, again, to be fair to him, just like we did to Tyler, like you need to find the pieces that fit in order for this to all work. Otherwise, we're just somewhere in the middle.
Or even the bottom middle, which is kind of where they were this year. When you're the 10 seed, you got a net rating. I mean, I guess the net rating just hit 0.0, but it was a struggle to get there. They needed that blowout against New Orleans at the end of the year when New Orleans was playing guys who won't even qualify for the G League to get there. And that was my most concerning. And Greg's also, other than mentioning the SPO stuff, my most concerning comment that Pat made was the thing that the last two games of the season were not who they were. Yes, they were. They were. I think we just need to acknowledge that and go on. Look, I can't cook and I can't clean. Okay. I acknowledge those things. Okay. You don't, I'm not good at any of that stuff. Try to fix something around the house, try to fix car that bleep ain't happening. Okay. You want me to get on a computer and do some work? I can handle that, but that stuff I can't do. Just acknowledge what you are. Okay. And the Heat at the end of that season, they were a team that got beat by 92 points at home in the last two games of playoff series. That's what you are. Let's build from that. Okay. Acknowledge, move on. Sean, appreciate it. Went a little bit long here as usual. Spo won't listen to this. He's in, I still can't believe he gave away his location. It's mind boggling to me from what I know of Spo. Like seriously, anyway, is what it is. At least there's no GPS. Thanks to our sponsors, insurancebyLynette.com, Prize Picks, use the code FIVE. And as usual, join us on Off the Floor. These conversations, unfortunately for me, they go on all day. Have a good one.